The wind cuts your face like a blade. You taste the sand between your teeth. Your eyes sting, but you can't blink, not now. The man in front of you has his hand on his hip. You know that in 3 seconds one of you will be dead. Your heart beats so hard you're sure he can hear it. 3, 2, stop. You're not watching a movie. You are living America's most brutal reality. Forget everything you thought you knew about the Wild West. Heroic cowboys, honorable duels, prosperous cities, lies. The truth is blood on the sand. Orphaned children, families destroyed for a gold nugget that never existed. In the next few minutes, you'll feel what it was really like to live where the only law was the speed of your revolver. Do you still taste fear in your mouth? Do you still feel cold sweat running down your forehead? Then you are ready to discover how millions of people came to this hell, California, 1848. A man named James Marshall finds something shiny in the river, a gold nugget. In a matter of weeks, the news spreads like wildfire. But it wasn't just news. It was the biggest lie ever told in America. Come to the West, gold for everyone. Guaranteed wealth. That's what they shouted in the newspapers. That's what they whispered in the taverns of New York, Boston, even in Europe. Entire families sold everything. Their homes, their furniture, their lives, all for a golden promise. More than 300,000 people abandoned everything and set off into the unknown. But here's what no one told them. Out of every 100 people who left, only 60 arrived alive. The other 40 died of starvation on the road, died of thirst in the desert, died of cholera in smelly camps, died in wagon accidents, died attacked by bandits. And those who arrived discovered that there was not enough gold for everyone. They discovered that the Promised Land was, in fact, an open-air cemetery where the only thing in abundance was death. Do you still want to know what it was like to live there? Then, get ready, because now you will feel every grain of sand, every drop of sweat, every heartbeat of someone who woke up every day not knowing if they would see the night. Now you are one of them. You sold everything, lost half your family on the journey, and finally arrived. Your boots are torn, your clothes are ragged, and you have exactly $0 in your pocket. It's 5 in the morning. The desert cold penetrates your bones like ice needles. You have no home. You have a makeshift tent made of rags. You have no bed. You have flea-infested straw that bites your skin all night. You wake up with your stomach growling from hunger. It's been 3 days since you've eaten anything but hard bread and dirty water from a well that looks more like mud. Your stomach hurts so much you can barely stand. But you can't give up. You grab your pan, this metal plate, which is your only hope, and walk to the river. The water is freezing, so cold that your fingers turn purple in seconds. You squat on the bank and start sifting. Stone, mud, sand. Stone, mud, sand. Your back hurts. Your knees are bleeding. You do this for 6, 7, 8 hours straight. And do you know what you find? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Next to you, a man collapses. He literally collapses. 3 days without eating. 10 hours in the scorching sun, sifting nothing. He doesn't get up again. You look at him and think, tomorrow it could be me. Because in the Wild West, every day was a lottery. And the prize wasn't gold. It was simply waking up the next day. The sun is getting higher, the heat is rising, and you still haven't eaten anything. But now comes the most dangerous part of the day, when desperate men do desperate things. The sun is now high above your head. You feel like you're inside an oven. Your skin burns, your lips crack, and you've started to see mirages on the horizon. But the heat is not your biggest problem. It's the men around you. That guy who was panning next to you is now staring at you. You see the desperation in his eyes. You see the hunger, and you see the knife at his waist. He knows you found 2 small nuggets yesterday. You know he knows. And you both know that in a lawless land, whoever is most willing to kill gets the gold. You start walking towards the settlement, but the 3-kilometer road is a minefield. Behind every stone, every dry bush, every bend in the road, there might be someone waiting. Suddenly you hear the sound of horses. Your heart stops. 3 hooded men emerge from behind a rock, revolvers pointed at you. Your nuggets or your life, they shout. You have 3 seconds to decide. Hand over a week's worth of gold or pull your revolver and pray you're faster than they are. You choose to fight. Your hand flies to your waist. The sound of metal being drawn echoes in the desert. Bang, bang, bang. When the smoke clears, 2 men are on the ground. You are standing trembling with a bullet that grazed your ear. You killed 2 men, but you know that tomorrow it could be you on the ground with the vulture circling above your body. Because at noon in the Wild West, when the sun was highest, that's when men became their most savage. You survived the day. Your hands are still shaking from what you just did. The blood of the men you killed is still fresh on the sand. But now the sun is setting, and you are about to discover that the night in the Wild West is 1,000 times worse than the day. The first shadows stretch across the dirt streets. You walk towards the tavern, not because you want to, but because sleeping alone in the desert is suicide. At least in the tavern there is light and witnesses. You push the creaking wooden doors. The smell hits you like a punch to the stomach. Old sweat, vomit, dried blood, and something you'd rather not identify. In the corner, an out-of-tune piano plays a sad melody. Men with glazed eyes bet their last coins. Do you see a miner you know? Yesterday he found a large nugget. Today he's betting everything on one hand of poker. I bet my mule, he shouts drunk. I bet my pickaxe. I bet my revolver. In 2 hours he lost everything. His only way to work, his only protection, his only hope. You see him stagger out of the tavern. Tomorrow he will rob someone or die trying. On the second floor you hear groans and cries. Women who came to seek a better life and are now the property of soulless men. Some are 16 years old. Others are not even that. You try to sleep in a corner, but every noise wakes you up. Steps on the stairs, sinister laughter, the sound of a bottle breaking on someone's head. At 3 a.m., you hear shouts outside, then silence. You don't go to check what happened, because those who go out on the street after midnight don't come back to tell the story. The night in the Wild West wasn't rest. It was a pause in the war. Before the next battle begins, you manage to survive the night. But when the sun rises, you see the bodies that didn't. 3 men dead on the main street, a woman thrown into the alley. No one asked their names. No one cares. You think you've seen the worst of humanity, but you haven't seen anything yet. Because while you're fighting for gold scraps, a death machine is moving across the territory. They're not bandits. They're not criminals. They are the Americans themselves, exterminating those who were here first. The Native Americans had lived on these lands for thousands of years. They were their homes, their rivers, their sacred mountains, until the hunger for gold turned men into demons. You hear the stories in the tavern. Entire villages burned at night. Children killed in cold blood. Women and the elderly massacred for being in the way. The buffalo, millions of them that covered the plains like a black sea, are killed for sport, not for food, but for fun. Trains stop just so passengers can shoot them from the windows. In a few years, herds that had existed for centuries were completely exterminated. The native peoples who depended on them to survive were condemned to starvation. You see entire families of Native Americans walking in chains, children crying for their dead parents, elders who carry the wisdom of generations being treated like animals. And do you know what's worse? This is not an accident. It is planned. It is systematic. It is genocide. Because gold wasn't just a race for wealth. It was an excuse to erase from the face of the earth those who were already here. You thought you were fighting for your life, but in reality, you were participating in the greatest tragedy in American history. The Golden Dream had a price, and that price was paid with innocent blood. You carry this weight on your conscience, the blood on your hands, the genocide you witnessed. But the story doesn't stop here, because all this brutality, all this death was numbered. You hear a strange sound on the horizon, a sound you've never heard before. It's a long metallic whistle echoing through the mountains. Then a deafening noise of iron against iron. The train has arrived. That black serpent, spewing smoke, didn't just bring passengers. It brought the end of everything you knew. In a matter of months, the wild mining camps were transformed into organized towns. The dirt streets were paved. Sheriffs stopped shooting first and asking questions later. But do you know what that means for you? It means your time is up. The big mining companies have arrived with gigantic machines. They can extract in one day what would take you a year to find. You can no longer compete. You no longer have a place. The legendary bandits. Billy the Kid was shot. Jesse James was betrayed by his own friend. Butch Cassidy fled to Bolivia. The law caught up with them one by one. The remaining buffalo were put on reservations. Native Americans were pushed onto lands no one wanted. Their cultures, their languages, their traditions, everything was silenced. The Wild West died, but from its ashes something worse was born. A lie. Hollywood took all this pain, all this blood, all this brutality and turned it into adventure, romance, heroism. They turned murderers into heroes, genocide into conquest, despair into courage. And you, You who lived through the real hell. Your story was forgotten because the truth doesn't sell movie tickets. America needed myths. It needed legends.
It needed to forget what really happened in that bloody desert. Now you know the truth that Hollywood buried.
You saw the blood that the movies turned into glory. You felt the pain that the books painted as adventure. But here is the question that will haunt you. What if it were you? What if you had been born in that time? What if your family was starving? What if someone told you that there was gold waiting for you on the other side of the country? Would you have the courage to sell everything and set off into the unknown? Or would you have stayed safe at home, watching others chase the golden dream? And when you got there, when you discovered that there was not enough gold for everyone, when you saw men killing for scraps, when hunger gnawed at your stomach for days, would you maintain your humanity, or would you become one of the predators? When a desperate man pointed a gun at you, wanting your last coins, would you hand over everything you have, or would you pull the trigger first? When you saw native families being massacred, would you try to save them? Or would you look away and think about your own survival? These are not easy questions because it is easy to judge when you are safe in your home, with food in the refrigerator and the law to protect you. But when you've been hungry for 3 days, when you see your children crying in pain, when you know you could die tomorrow, you discover that the line between hero and villain is much thinner than you imagined. The Wild West was not about good versus evil. It was about desperate people making impossible choices, and most of these choices ended in tragedy. So tell me, after everything you've lived today, do you still romanticize the Wild West? You have just experienced what millions of people truly lived. Did you taste the blood in your mouth? Did you feel the weight of the revolver in your hand? Did you feel the impossible choice between killing or dying? Now you know the truth they don't want you to know. The Wild West was not adventure. It was survival. It was not heroism. It was human despair in its purest form. But here's what impresses me most. You watched until the end. You had the courage to face reality even when it hurt. That says a lot about who you are. Most people prefer the comfortable lie, prefer to believe in heroic cowboys, honorable duels, and justice that always wins. But you chose the truth. And if you've made it this far, if you really felt every word I said, then you need to do something for me. You need to spread this truth, because with each passing day, more people believe the Hollywood version of the story. More people forget the real suffering of those who lived in that era. So click that like button, not for me, but for every person who died in that desert and never had their story told. Subscribe to the channel, because I promise I will continue to unearth these truths they try to hide from you. Share this video. Show it to someone who still believes the Wild West was romantic. Let them feel what you just felt. And tell me in the comments, after everything you've lived today, would you still have the courage to try your luck in the Wild West? Or have you realized that sometimes it's better to stick with the life you have? Because in the end, perhaps the greatest courage is not to venture into the unknown, but to have the wisdom to know when to stay